Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our weekly SEDP update call. Looks like we've got a good turnout today. Very, very grateful to have our Congressman John Molinar join us. John has been a regular on this program over the last year, giving us updates about what's happening in Washington and how it affects Shiawassee County. Obviously, we know there's a lot going on, but I know one thing that we've been hearing questions on are related to the recently passed American Rescue Plan and what that means for stakeholders in Shiawassee County, including businesses in our community. There's a lot of different programs associated with that. So very grateful to have John on to give us an update again about what's happening with that and anything else happening in DC. So John, the floor is yours. And I think you might still be muted, so hit *6 on your phone.
Okay.
There we go. You're good.
Well, good morning. I'm still getting used to this technology. You'd think after a year I'd be all set, but can you hear me okay, Justin?
You're all good, John. Yep.
All right. Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and I know you're very excited about Michigan's big win last night, coming from behind and looking really strong.
Go Blue.
I did. My dad's an Illinois fan, and I picked them to win the whole thing. That's hurt my bracket, but I have Michigan going all the way to the Final Four, I think. So
Nice.
We hope they win it. I guess it was last month, we were at Daystar Communications and met with the team there, talked about some new legislation I've been working on to improve rural broadband access. It's called the Boost Act. It's technology neutral, so it enables people to choose the internet technology that works best for them, whether it's a booster to speed up a signal or a hotspot just to receive a signal. You can even purchase satellite equipment when that's available. But this would create a tax credit so people can write off part of the cost of the equipment. It's something that will expand rural broadband in areas that aren't currently served. And fortunately, we've got good, strong support from Republicans and Democrats, and I'm working hard to build strong bipartisan support on this. So I'll keep you posted as we go along with that. But one of the things, Justin, you mentioned is, the recent bill that was passed and signed into law. One of the things that I'm excited about that legislation was extending the Paycheck Protection Program until June 30th. So gives our small businesses more time to apply and take part in that. The shutdowns and the restrictions, we really need to kind of move forward and get beyond that, and people need to, take actions to keep themselves safe and be smart for themselves and their families. But the vaccines are getting out there. It's a historic accomplishment scientifically that we were able to develop those vaccines in a year. And you can really see a dramatic decline from December when as soon as the most vulnerable were vaccinated, and nationwide that's continuing today. In the Paycheck Protection Program, there's still billions of funding for these interest-free loans for those who need them to pay workers, rent, utilities, and keep the lights on. It's there for anyone who needs a first, a second, or even a third loan. It's injected $15 billion into Michigan, and more than 7,000 businesses throughout the 4th District have taken advantage of this. And it's really been a lifeline, and I hope your listeners and your members will take advantage of this as they need it. The parts of the $2 trillion bill I wasn't excited about is it's truly a monstrosity. It's got a number of provisions that'll make it harder for our job providers to hire people this year. Thankfully, the $15 minimum wage was taken out of the bill. That's a burden we don't want to place on our small businesses, as they've been through so much and restricted by so much this past year. But what was included was this extension of the $300 a week and unemployment extra relief all the way through September. And I think that's going to create the incentive that people won't want to go back to work, which is exactly the wrong thing. These vaccines are going to be widely available throughout April and May, and I'm hoping that people will get the shot, protect themselves. And there's really no reason after that people shouldn't be going back and looking for work. Last month, the state reported 120,000 people left the workforce and gave up looking for work. And that's something that it's a hopeless situation, and that direction. And we really need to allow businesses to reopen, to grow, to hire people so that they can provide for themselves and their families. And the other thing about this massive $2 trillion bill is that it was a huge bailout for states that made reckless decisions before the pandemic. 90% of the school funding in it won't even be spent this year and won't be used for reopening. Only 9% of the bill was directly related to COVID, and only 1% of it went to vaccine distribution. So it was kind of falsely marketed, and unfortunately, it's really going to add debt to our future as a country. Now there's talk about the Biden administration planning a major tax increase to pay for this. And, this has been a difficult time. I don't need to tell you, for small businesses who are just getting back on their feet. And unfortunately, the administration is looking to expand more regulations, more spending, and more taxes. And I'm going to keep resisting that and continue to fight to keep Washington out of the way so that you can recover, grow, and thrive. And so those are just some of the things I wanted to mention this morning, Justin, and happy to answer any questions you might have, or, I know you've got other people participating as well.
John, thank you. Always appreciate the update. A couple of maybe more, not minor points on the business funding, but, and if you want to follow up afterward, that'd be great too. But I know there were some specialty programs like for restaurants that have been shut down. I think event venues too, like shuttered venue operators, I think was the, any background or input on any of those programs?
Yeah, you're right. There was included in some of those areas. And Justin, I think what I'd like to do on that, because I don't have those numbers in front of me and kind of the technical process to apply for that, but what I'd like to do is share that with you as a circle back and follow up with you and get you that information so you can get that out to people and have the exact information that they'll need.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I was just taking a look at the SBA website, and yeah, there's so much out there right now. And obviously, we just want to make sure that we're sharing all that information, probably via email, with all of our stakeholders. You mentioned the primary one, John, the additional support for the PPP program, which I think I've mentioned before has been a lifeline. We've had over 600 businesses in Shiawassee County take advantage of it. So that was a huge, I think, success for this community. But yeah, I'm looking, there's also a shuttered venue operators grant. There's some more money for EIDL, restaurant revitalization fund. So yeah, please, any of that additional small business information that you can share, we'll absolutely pass that along to all the Shiawassee stakeholders.
Absolutely. And the main thing is we're excited about businesses reopening, getting back to our normal lives, and making sure we don't create more incentives to keep people out of the workforce, because that's actually the wrong direction to go.
Well, and I'll tell you, just so you know, yeah, that is still the number one thing I'm hearing from businesses right now. And even to the restaurants point, it seems like every single restaurant here is hiring now for cooks and wait staff. And so, thank you, though, for all that you're doing. I do want to open up the floor, though. Does anyone have questions for Congressman Molinar? If you do, please hit *6 on your phone. Anyone have questions for John? *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Cheryl Holm with Rural Development. How would your proposed broadband be different than the current broadband support that we have in place?
Sure. Well, it's complementary, and thank you for the question. So, as you know, there's a lot of initiative from Washington, from our state to build out fiber to different areas that haven't been covered, and that's very important. And in the long run, that's just vital. But as you also know, that because of the sort of the business model of building that out, it's more and more difficult to get it to sort of that last mile where you have less population density. And so in my district, there are going to be areas where it's going to be 5 to 10 years before we have that fiber built out to different areas. And so what this does, it's an interim process where it's a tax credit. We sunset the program after 5 years, but it's a tax credit that will enable people who currently aren't served by, broadband, and give them a tax credit that they can buy some kind of a device that helps them access wireless technologies. And, it's technology neutral, so it certainly doesn't pick winners and losers among wireless technologies. But as you know, there's a lot of innovation going on between different, companies, different, satellite launches through SpaceX and Starlink. And what this will do is enable people who aren't going to have broadband or fiber built out to their area for a number of years to actually start accessing some of these wireless technologies, and will reduce some of the cost to them. So it's kind of on the demand side.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Other questions for the congressman? Anybody have anything? If you do, hit *6 on your phone, please. Anybody have anything? Okay. Well, John, as always, thank you for what you're doing to represent us in Washington. Appreciate your time today. And yes, please do send any follow-up information on any of those programs to me by email, and I'll be sure to pass that along to all of our stakeholders here.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Justin. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, thanks to John for joining us. I do want to now turn it over to Larry Johnson, our health department director. He's been an even more regular guest on our program, usually every week or two. And Larry's got some updates to share regarding what's going on health-wise here and the COVID-19 vaccine. So, Larry, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Justin, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Larry.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back with you. Well, it seems like it is a regular appointment. A few things are going on this week that I wanted to touch base. That's some new news. So I wanted to jump in on the call this morning. Just real quick on the cases. We're seeing an uptick in the cases, and we're kind of tracking what's happening around the state right now. We had bottomed out at 43 new cases week over week about 4 weeks ago. Over the last 3 weeks, we've averaged about 65 new cases. So we're just under 3,800. We're going to be reporting out the numbers tomorrow. That's 245 active cases. So we have some concerns about that. And as we're so close to the finish line here, what I'd like to say, the goal line, with the vaccine, we're having a couple false start penalties and a holding call here. So we want to keep our eye on the ball and get this thing over the goal line and get everybody vaccinated. Some of the new cases that we're seeing are involved in school athletics. So there's more going on with school athletics now. They're going to have to test every week for the spring sports, similar to what they were doing for the indoor winter sports that didn't wear masks. So the athletes are going to be tested in the schools with the rapid test. The other thing that's happening that came out yesterday is the UK variant has been identified in Shiawassee County. That is you've heard about it on the news. It's a more transmissible variant of the coronavirus. So we're real concerned about that, and that also puts pressure on us to really continue to ramp up the vaccines. So with the vaccine, some good news. We are receiving more vaccines now than we were when this process had the slow rollout. To date, the county has received 16,200. The health department has received 10,900 first and second dose. The success rate for vaccinated people is tracking the state at about 28%. We've administered 22,667 total doses. You wonder why that number is bigger. As I say every week, it's because two things. One, people can get the shot outside of the county. And then number two, we're drawing up extra doses in our vials, almost on every vial. So we're really successful in that, and we're pushing them all out. We're not wasting any. So our target population is just under 56,000 to get vaccinated, and we've gotten a shot into 22,667 of them. 15,685 have received one dose. 6,982, just under 7,000 are fully vaccinated. So that's how you get to the 22,000 administered. This week we received 900 first dose and 800 second dose. And we've pushed out about half of that to our community partners that are helping us. This week also the recommendations for getting the vaccine have changed in terms of the age. Now it's 50 and older, or 16 and older with underlying conditions. So we're running a large clinic today, our largest to date, and so it's kind of a mix of everyone that needs the vaccine. Justin had sent me a question this morning about people on our list, and particularly the elderly and those over 65. We still have a few on our list that are straggling in or have been on our list, and we're prioritizing them for the clinics. So they will be contacted when we get a clinic link ready to go. So if they don't have internet, we'll call them. But we're still continuing to see new 65 and older get on our list. So for whatever reason, maybe they didn't want to go right away. Maybe they changed their mind. They're still trickling in, and we're still getting to them. And we're going to prioritize them always for any upcoming clinics. So another thing that's happening is Ingham County reached out to us, their health department, and they've received Pfizer vaccine for the region 1. And so they're offering Pfizer to us. And Pfizer is important because that is the vaccine that down to 16 are eligible for. Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are 18 and older. We have not handled Pfizer at the health department yet, but I never turned down a vaccine. So we are going to take Pfizer, and we're going to work with Memorial to get a clinic set up specifically for the 16 and 17-year-olds that are in the schools. So a survey is going out through the school superintendents to the high schools to see what the demand would be for the 16 and 17-year-olds to be able to get a Pfizer vaccine. And so we really kind of want to help facilitate vaccines for that high school population, because the high schools are in the older kids is where we're seeing the cases, not so much in the elementary. I mean, we see them there, but it's way more involving sports in high school aged kids. So we want to get to them. Also, with regard to the vaccine links, twice now we've sent out the link to the business contacts that we've got through Justin. So you may have seen a link come through to register your people for vaccine. Many, many, many of you have registered for our clinics this week. And then the link went out again last night to the contacts for next week's clinics. So we encourage you to check your email and get registered. This will be, we're going to have clinics recurring every week, but we wanted to get your businesses and those that had done that survey way back in January an opportunity to get on there and get registered. Many of your people have probably already been vaccinated. Great. That's good. Now, if you haven't received the email, you got to let us know, and we will get that right out to you, that link, for whatever reason. Or if there's a business that might not have been surveyed back in January, we want to make sure we get to you too. So just let myself or Justin know. Justin can be a good point of contact and get that information to us. We are still using an online registration now on our website to register people, and on April 5th, it's going to be open to everyone in the state. So we got away from the phone list, and it was very labor intensive, and so we're doing more online registry now, but we still do the phone if this person doesn't have internet or access. So look for that online registration on our website to get registered. Once again, April 5th, it's going to be open to everyone in the state of Michigan over the age of 16. And then the last thing, a nice little article yesterday in the Argus about the homebound, those that can't get out of their houses to get a vaccine. We're working with HomeJoy and local EMS partners to get vaccine on the road and to go to their houses and to get them vaccinated, because many of them are going to have a higher risk, very, very high risk for the getting the virus, and may have underlying conditions, among other things. So really important. A lot of partners are doing good work on that to help our homebound. I think I've covered a lot in a little bit of time because I've got to run off to a clinic, but I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Larry. Absolutely appreciate the partnership we've shared here over the last year in communicating and getting the word out to our folks. So very grateful for all you're doing. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Larry? If you do, hit *6, please, on your phone. Anyone have anything for Larry? Last call. Anybody have anything? My only question, you already answered. Oh,
Good morning.
Did we get some? Oh, here's somebody.
Yes, good morning, Shelly Akanicki here. How are
Go
you,
ahead,
Larry?
Shelly.
Hey, I want to say thanks for all you're doing, Larry. I know that you guys are putting out a lot of effort and working with many different entities to get the vaccine going and all that comes with that. I did have a question on the variant. We heard about that obviously early last fall with Dr. Fauci. I was following it somewhat through the media. Correct me if I'm wrong, I guess. The variant wasn't as strong as the first virus when the virus first came out. If I'm hearing that correctly, when I reading up and watching some news. But how do we know that the variant is covered under this vaccine? I mean, I'm kind of thinking maybe it's like a flu, that it changes every year or however that might work. And then is there going to be a different vaccine for the variant? And I do not see an uptick in deaths and hospitalizations, which I always get frustrated by that we are losing focus on, because that was kind of like why we shut down to begin with and, closed up businesses. So I'm kind of wondering your thoughts on those two things, if you could share.
Thanks, Shelly. Those are great questions. So on the variant, I'll start with that one. The variant, the UK variant, the vaccine has had some response to that as far as the ability to protect. The one we're concerned about is the South African variant, where it's much lower of a protection or an efficacy. So we think that with the science, the data that we have as of today, that the vaccine that we currently have will be beneficial even for the UK variant. But this thing mutates. It particularly hasn't really shown any higher death percentage, but we want to be careful with it because what it is more transmissible. So it's easier to catch this virus when it has mutated into the UK variant. So that's where the public health measures come in: the hand washing, masks, social distancing. Nobody wants to go backwards, and nobody wants to go back towards these closures. So we just gotta, like I said, keep moving forward. Now, with regard to a booster, they're working on that right now. It may, in fact, be a yearly booster similar to a flu shot. And really interestingly is Moderna over in UK, in the United Kingdom, is working on a combined COVID and influenza vaccine. Wouldn't that be great if you could get it all in one shot? A little early to tell on that. We got to wait and see what happens with the virus once we get herd immunity and get everybody vaccinated. But they are preparing for the possibility of a yearly booster. So keep that in mind. And then I got to remember what your second question was. Or did I cover both your questions?
Well, yeah, I just noted that we're not seeing an increase in deaths and hospitalizations so far in following us. And we're at 2 in our county. And I want to say that I learned something new around Christmas time. My father-in-law was in the hospital. He was at Pleasant View since last April. And when they put him in, he gets pneumonia sometimes twice a year. He has asthma, and that's kind of his thing that happens most often in the winter for him. He was placed on the COVID floor and listed as a COVID patient, did not have COVID, never tested positive for COVID from the nursing home to the hospital and back again. So I think it's interesting that when we look at our numbers for the hospital and hospitalizations, that just because they're marked as COVID hospitalizations does not mean that they are positive for COVID or have COVID.
That's interesting. Yeah, with regard to the treatment on that though, and the death rate, we've come a long way since a year ago, last March, and the treatments are much better now. They've got steroids, they've got the antivirals like remdesivir that they really didn't have early on, and so you're seeing the death rate plummet. I mean, and the other thing they're doing is they're not putting people on ventilators as often as they did in the beginning because there were poor outcomes with the ventilator. When you're talking only 25 or 30% survive going on the ventilator. So what they're doing is increased oxygen and ways to kind of really force oxygen in if they need it, if they can't breathe. So I can't get into any of the other stuff about how they count that. That's all handled by the state, but I'm very sorry to hear about your father-in-law.
Yeah, no, and he's good. Luckily, he ended up kind of bouncing back and such. I was just we just found that interesting and kind of a little scary that he was placed into a COVID port, but that's what they do because he had symptoms, obviously. So just for precaution, that's what happens. And Memorial Healthcare took wonderful care of him, and he is doing much better now. So I'm grateful for that. But I just found that interesting and wanted to share that, that sometimes those numbers are a little different than what they portrayed to be. So, but thank you, Larry. Appreciate your time and effort.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shell. Any other comments or questions for Larry? Hit *6 on your phone, please. Anything else for Larry? Okay, well, once again, Larry, as always, thank you for your time. You might actually have the record maybe for most appearances, guest appearances over the past year. We haven't really kept count, but once again, I want to thank you because I think this partnership is critically important to be able to communicate this information to our stakeholders. I mean, it's still a top question that we're getting is access to vaccine distribution. So as you all know, we share the updates weekly from the health department and Memorial, and we're going to continue to do that until we're out of the woods here. So as always, Larry, thank you for your time. Really don't have much more for the agenda today. That was really where we wanted to focus on Congressman Molinar and then obviously the vaccine update. Gary Jones, unfortunately, was not able to make it today. He will be back on next week with an update from the governor's office. We are doing a coffee update on Thursday. You should have seen that email. This is more of a economic update for Shiawassee County and what SEDP is working on. That's going to be 8 a.m. Here at the Armory. We're actually offering a virtual option too for those that are not able to make it. So we'll send the link out on that tomorrow, but you're certainly all welcome to participate in that. It's going to be 8 to 8:30 on Thursday morning. And we will be back next week as usual. But in the meantime, if anything comes up, feel free to get a hold of us. So thank you all for coming today, and we'll talk to you soon.